We're going to talk about growing peppers because here we are, first week of March. Super exciting. We've installed the greenhouse tables where we do our seedlings, and we'll be covering that all up with hoops and row covers so that we can trap some of the heat in there so we're not heating the whole greenhouse, just our row of tables. And one of the first things that we start at this time of year is peppers, because peppers take a long time to be ready to plant, and because our season is quite short, we want to have a well-developed plant by the time we come to plant it. So don't start your tomatoes, don't start your cucumbers. It's way too early for that. But if you want to do some seed starting this week, it's perfect for onions and peppers. So here, these are pepper seeds. Little tiny guys, the seeds that you find inside peppers. This is King of the North, which is an excellent organic, open pollinated variety. So if you do grow King of the North, or you do buy pepper plants from us this year, they'll be King of the North, so you can save your own seeds. Because you need to remember, with a hybrid is where they've taken two pure genetic lines and crossed them to get the hybrid vigor. Like, think of crossing a horse and a donkey, you get a mule. Super strong, but can't reproduce. Same thing with vegetables. A lot of the crops we grow are hybrids because they've been bred for these super excellent traits, and then you cross them and you get hybrid vigor. But if you grow out the seeds, you get a whole smorgasbord of unreliable stuff. But with King of the North, it's an OP, open pollinated, so you can save the seed. So we seed the peppers, one seed per cell, in these big trays, 72s. So you can see the size of the cell. You can also seed them just directly in like an open flat. I don't have any here. And then pot them up when they have one true leaf. We prefer doing this because it saves time, but you're welcome to do either way. So the plants are going to stay in here. We seed them just directly in potting mix, pure potting mix with no added fertilizer at this stage. And when the plants will have grown to be about 4 to 6 inches tall and have a nice little root ball, we'll pot them up into a larger pot. So this allows us to save time at this time of year, and it has the added benefit that because peppers take such a long time, they usually run out of organic fertilizer before they're ready to plant in the field. So by potting them up, we can pot them up into potting mix that's been amended with extra fertilizer. So for a pot like this, it's probably going to have about a teaspoon's worth of organic fertilizer. So those chicken manure pellets. And so we'll pot them up into here. That'll probably be in about a month. So they'll spend about a month in these. Then they'll get potted up into 3.5 or 4 inch pots. And then they'll stay in these pots until they're ready to plant. If you want to get really good pepper yields, you're going to want to prune them. But unlike tomatoes, who tend to do too much foliage, peppers tend to do too much flowers. So what you'll usually get with a pepper plant is this type of growth habit. It'll start with a single stem for about 6 or 7 leaves, and then it'll fork. That's the first node, but for some reason we call it N0, the initial node. And then at every level, it'll fork again. It's exponential. So this level is N1, N1, sorry, I am confusing you. Never mind, sorry folks. Hop, hop. So the first is N1, N1, so there's 2 N1s, and then N2 is exponential, right? N2, there's like 4 N2s, and then so on and so forth. Each time it forks, it's getting more and more and more and more and more. So in a greenhouse setting, we'll be pruning off some of those nodes, but for your home gardener setting, it's not worth doing that. But what is worth doing is taking off some flowers. So when your plant grows and it makes that first fork, you're going to have a little flower there. You're going to want to get rid of that flower. That's going to encourage the plant to put more energy into growing leaves instead of fruits right away. If you leave that first fruit, you'll get peppers earlier, but your plants will be less vigorous, less well developed, and you get less peppers overall. So that can even happen before you plant it. Usually it gets its first fruit when it's still in the pot, right in that first fork. We just take that right off. Get rid of that first fork. So then you get another 2 flowers at the N1. So you're going to leave those. Those are going to stay. Then at the third set of nodes, which is N2, you get 4 of those. Those you're going to take off. Take those off. Up. And then the next fork, you're going to get a whole bunch more flowers. Up, 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 up. Those you're going to leave. And from then on, at that point, you can probably just leave them all the plant is going to naturally select, is going to avert some of those fruits. Some of those fruits are just going to naturally fall off when it gets too many fruits on the plant. A pepper plant can realistically have about 5 to 7 fruit on it at any given moment. So usually it just self-selects and just gets rid of those fruits above that stage. But really, if you can be taking off that N0 fruit, that's already, you're like a step ahead of the game. And then if on top of that, you leave the second set of fruits, but you take off the third set of fruits, wow, you are really cooking with gas at that point. You're like a pro gardener. So hopefully that's clear. If that's not clear, please come on down to the farm store. We're having like a spring gardening festival from May 17th to 31st, so that's 3 weekends in a row. We'll be having Q&A with Farmer Joe. If you have questions, come on down, check the website, stay tuned for more details about the timing, but we will be having Q&A sessions live with me, so come on down and we can clarify that for you in the summer. The other thing about peppers that I just want to mention is that they're a very long season crop and they need a lot of fertility. But if you put it on all at once at the beginning, it's going to have way too much nitrogen for the plant. It's going to be unbalanced and make a lot of leaf. It's going to just create just general unbalanced overgrowth in the beginning of the season, and then it's not going to have enough in the late season. So peppers really are one of the crops that benefit from splitting your fertilizer into smaller regular doses every 2 to 3 weeks. You know, split that, instead of putting it all at once, split it into 4 and space it out every 3 weeks. That's really like another thing that'll help you with the peppers. Peppers need a lot of light, they need a lot of heat, and they need a lot of water. Regular water. You don't want that soil drying out in between waterings, and you don't want the soil soaking wet. The other thing is that they do have a tendency to get bacterial diseases. So you don't want to be watering the leaves, you want to have a soaker hose. You keep a nice steady irrigation. If you have a little timer, that's the best. Head on over to Home Depot, just have a little watering timer, 15 minutes in the morning around 10 o'clock. Ooh, you're going to be really excellent at that point. Lots of heat, lots of light. Usually we plant them around the middle of May, and we get peppers starting, you know, July, August, September, into October. If you have row cover, that you can create like a little tunnel with hoops, right? Little hoops, little row cover that'll give it that extra heat in those cold nights of May. We actually plant them in the tunnel with row cover because the peppers are really a plant that are tropical in nature, and they suffer from those cold temperatures. So, all right, so here's what we got. We got starting your peppers early, first week of March, get them planted. Secondly, we have pruning the flowers. Even when they're in the pot, that first flower in that first fork, you gotta swipe it off. Just take it right off. And then the second set of flowers you leave, and the third set of flowers you take off, and then after that you don't worry about it anymore. Third thing, heat, heat, heat. It needs heat, it needs light. You gotta choose the best spot in your garden for this plant. It is a heat-loving plant, planted mid-May with row cover and hoops for a couple weeks, and then, you know, taking that off once the heat of summer really arrives. And then constant irrigation. What happens is when you have uneven irrigation, the calcium in the soil is not as available, and so you end up getting calcium deficiency in your pepper plant. Even if you know, there's plenty of calcium in your soil, that even moisture is going to make a difference. And finally, split that fertilizer up. Fertilize every 3 to 4 weeks. You know, starting when you plant, all the way up until early July. Once you get to early July, that should really be your last fertilization. So like mid-May, you know, early June, end of June, early July. That's like 4 fertilizations right there. So splitting that fertilizer into smaller doses so that you keep it well fed at an even pace. And yeah, so if you have any questions, come on by, and we look forward to seeing you.